Today, we're joined with a very special guest. His name is Salim Najjar, also known as That HRV Guy. He brings the lens of an engineer to the human nervous system, guiding CEOs, founders, and elite performers to nervous system sovereignty, teaching them to alchemize stress into their greatest ally with HRV as the compass. After transforming his HRV from 32 to over 100, he created the Art of the Heart framework, a path towards nervous system sovereignty. From launching his own beverage company to traveling the globe and learning from spiritual masters, Salim stands at the intersection of entrepreneurship, biohacking, and consciousness. Today, he bridges these worlds to build a movement and community that returns empowerment to each individual, reminding us that your body's wisdom is the only guru you will ever need. Salim, welcome to the show.
Oh man, such a pleasure and honor to be on the show. Thank you, my brother.
Absolutely. I'm excited to dig in and have a great convo with you. There's a lot of questions I personally want to know about. I'm a big fan of HRV and its importance. But before we dive in, I thought it'd be cool if you could take us through a short breath work. What's a breath work that you would, I know there's many different variations. I actually suggest to my clients to do breath work a lot too. But what's a nice, simple breath work you'd suggest to somebody who feels stressed in their
Yeah,
day that they can kind of regulate their HRV and their nervous system?
breath is the cheapest, freest, most efficient way to regulate your nervous system, and the one that has supported me the most, especially during the entrepreneurial grind, is just box breathing. It's so simple, and people think it's like, but the impact it has on your nervous system is unbelievable. And then I just end it with a little bit of somatic awareness. So if you're open to it, we could spend a couple minutes just doing that. I could guide it audibly.
Beautiful. I love that. Let's do it.
All right, so let's start out by just closing the eyes and just exhaling through the mouth, all the air. And then inhale for one, two, three, four. Hold, two, three, four. Exhale, two, three, four. Hold, two, three, four. Inhale, two, three, four. Hold, two, three, four. Exhale, two, three, four. Hold, two, three, four. Inhale, two, three, four. Hold, two, three, four. Exhale, two, three, four. Hold, two, three, four. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, exhale, hold. And allow your breath to get back to its normal rhythm, keeping the eyes closed just a few more moments and take an inventory of any sensations that you are feeling in your body, any physical, somatic sensations. Scan your body, get a feel for the internal landscape, what is happening. Our body has trillions of cells that are always communicating with us. And the more time we could spend just feeling and listening, I'm sure we're going to be getting into this a lot on the show, but you will see your HRV improve because it's actually also a reflection of how much are you listening to your body? How much are you feeling your body? And a little bit of box breathing, a little bit of intentional breath work gives you an opportunity to really listen deeper. In your own time, feel free to come back in your body and open your eyes.
There we go. Now I'm ready for the show.
Now you're ready for the show. I'm very ready. It's morning here in Bali, and I spent the past hour and a half doing my morning practice and breath work. I spend about 40 minutes on breath work.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
What actually, before I jump into that too, I want to ask you, what is your definition of a peak human?
Hmm. The first thing that comes to mind, I've never thought about that question. I should have thought I could have thought about that knowing this podcast. A peak human to me, in my experience, is someone who is in deep listening to their body, because I believe the body is the most innate, advanced technology we have, and it is intuition. Like your body is all the intuition you need, and it knows how to optimize itself more than anything outside of you. It is designed for evolution. It's insane everything that's actually happening that we don't even know about in our body, and so to me, a peak human is someone who deeply listens to their body.
I love that. I agree. How does someone listen to their body?
That is the question that took me quite some time to figure out and still learning to figure out. But a incredible ally in that journey for myself is this biomarker, HRV, heart rate variability. And what that biomarker is measuring is the space or the gap between each of your heartbeats. And what that is indicating is how your heart is managing and perceiving its ever-changing environment. So essentially, your relationship to your perceived stress and a direct reflection of the health of your autonomic nervous system and its ability to shift from a sympathetic fight or flight state into a parasympathetic rest and digest state. And why I answer your question with that is because how I have come to learn to articulate HRV is as the language of your body. I believe it's the language of your nervous system that's communicating between those heartbeats, how your nervous system and body is feeling in that moment, what is dissonant with it and what is resonant with it. And it is the most honest translator as someone who spent a decade deep in the biohacking, optimizing, peak performing to the extreme state. Um, it has so humbly shown me how much it is the language of your body, and it is the one biomarker of all the biomarkers that always correlated to how I was actually feeling. Like there'd be mornings I'd wake up and I'd see my sleep score and I'd be like, I had a horrible night's sleep, but it's like 90 something. Like, how is that possible? Or vice versa. Um, but the one metric that always was not only like tell me how I was feeling, but predicting how I was going to feel if I was like getting sick, or anything like that, has been HRV.
I love that definition. It's the language of the body. So true. And why do you think it's so underrated and so, yeah, why do you think it's so underrated? Maybe not as much now because more people are talking about it, and thanks to you for bringing more awareness to it. But why do you think it's has been underrated?
I think I would say I don't know if it's as much underrated as just misunderstood. And
Yeah.
when, as humans, and I'm very guilty of this, if I don't understand something or I can't figure out something, it's like, bah, right? And in general, biomarkers and that space of peak performing is always about optimizing and improving. But if you think of this biomarker as a language, when you think of languages, you don't think English is better than Spanish, is better than French, is better than Arabic, right? The entire intent of a language is for an ecosystem within a community to communicate. The entire intent of your HRV score is for your body and nervous system to only communicate with you, meaning you cannot compare your HRV score to anybody else's, which is something our beautiful, competitive, I'll speak for myself, mind loves to do, is one thing. And then the second thing is, in general, when you think of biomarkers, there's always a range, right? There's a published range of where you want your heart rate to be, where you want this to be. Research, including the Heart Math Institute, who has been studying HRV and heart coherence for decades, has yet to publish a range for HRV because there is no range because it is so unique to the individual. Because again, just like there's no two fingerprints that are the same, there are no two heartbeats in the world that are the same, right? And so comparing your score to someone else's or thinking yours is low and needs to be better actually leads to your next bad score
Yeah.
because bad next low score, very cautious of my language, because if HRV is measuring how you are perceiving your environment, we perceive our reality through our senses, through our touch, through our taste, through our nose, through our sight, through our ears, but most of all, through our thoughts, through
Mm.
our relationships to our stories. And so, if you think of this biomarker as every other biomarker, and that's how you utilize and train with it, which I was guilty of the first 6 months of after I understood what it was, you're not going to see your baseline go up at all. And I think it's because of that, most people get so frustrated with it and are like, and haven't really got taken the time to fully understand it. Right. And so then people are like, okay, well, then what do you do with it if there's no range? And how I like to utilize it is understanding what I call my HRV baseline is. And I define my HRV baseline as your average HRV score over the last 30 days. And I
Mm.
should also caveat that the HR, most people measure HRV. Let's talk about that through wearables, right? I have an Oura Ring, Apple Watch, Whoop. Most wearables have the ability to measure HRV. And what they're giving you, that morning HRV score you see, is not your real-time HRV because your real-time HRV fluctuates 40, 60, 80 times a minute if it's measuring that variance between
Every
each heartbeat,
heartbeat.
right?
Yeah.
And it's supposed to fluctuate, which is also why, like, you should not think, oh, I have a bad score if it's low. It's meant to go up and down and be ever evolving as our ever evolving world is. What those wearables give you is your average nightly HRV score, meaning the average gap between every heartbeat across when you were sleeping with your eyes closed and not much external stimuli, which is a good barometer of whatever load you put your nervous system through the day before and how it's feeling after that, right? And so if you take the average last 30 morning HRV scores, you have a good snapshot of the overall health of your nervous system over the last 30 days. That's your baseline. If you wake up in the morning and you have a baseline score of 40 and your morning score is 20, that's not bad. That is a language that your nervous system is saying whatever you did the day before is more of a load, was more of a stress than it's been used to the last 30 days.
Yep.
All you need to do is listen, honor it. Don't do the thing I was so conditioned to doing and culture is so conditioned to doing when we're trying to peak and optimize is keep pushing harder and stay up late for work and work out harder. That is not listening, and that's going to lead to the next low score, right? And on the flip side, if you wake up, your baseline's 40 and your HRV score in the morning is 60, that's your nervous system giving you permission to maybe consciously push it a little bit, right? Go a little harder in the gym or more often than not have the challenging conversation that you have been holding off. Because again, nothing that I have seen personally in myself and any of my clients shifts that baseline needle more than the emotional state.
Wow. So many things in there. One thing I'm curious about. So you're saying an HRV of 100 is not better than an HRV of 44.
I am saying that in science, this isn't me saying it, by the way.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah. Yeah.
research is saying that that score of 44 for that individual may in fact be a more regulated nervous system than the
Yeah.
score of someone of 100. May, right? Now,
Right.
that doesn't mean we should talk about what do you want your score to be? A higher HRV, meaning a wider gap, is indicative of a more malleable and resilient nervous system that has the capacity to handle more of the ever-changing environment, right? So in general, you want your score to be higher than what it's been, right? You want to work so that it is maintaining or going up. And on the flip side, a lower HRV score, meaning less of a gap between beats, indicates a more rigid, fragile nervous system, and that which is rigid breaks. Now, the one thing research over the decades has shown with HRV is in general, as you age, HRV declines, which makes total sense because if it's reflecting your nervous system's stress capacity and what it's gone through as we age, we go through a lot more stress. Now, that being said, I've seen in myself and in all of my clients as they age, their baseline goes up because you can train it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a set thing, but you do want to see your baseline maintain and ideally over time go up.
Beautiful. Let's rewind a little bit, and then I do want to actually ask you how you do train it, and I'm assuming that includes your Art of the Heart framework, right? Explaining how you do that, which is great. You you studied nuclear engineering, and then you started a beverage company that was very successful. You had over, I think, over 150 investors or something like that, and then you had a breakdown, and that led you to becoming. I love how you say it. What did you write down here? A nervous system sovereignty guide.
Hmm.
So just give us elaborate on that paraphrase story I just said to how you got to doing this.
Yeah, so I actually I studied dual engineering in electrical and computer systems engineering. However, I ended up working at a nuclear power plant for 5.5 years. That powered most of New York City. So I didn't study nuclear engineering, but I was I found myself
Wow.
in those roles. And it was during actually right when I graduated college that I became obsessed with health and wellness and really diet and nutrition. I think what's usually the first foray in that world, and that had everything to do with my father passed away when I was 7 from cancer, and I never really processed it at that age and those formative ages when so much of the patterns and programs get put in place.
Yep.
Which led me to my, belief that I needed to support, sacrifice, provide all the fuel that um, got me through engineering school and to entrepreneurship and stuff like that. But when I graduated college, my grandma, who was my second mom, got breast cancer. And that's when I was like, what is going on in the
Oh
world and the
man.
health world? Everybody I know is impacted by this thing called cancer. And I started doing my own research. And that's really the first time that my mind was exposed to this reality that we see and we're fed what other people want us to see. And there's just so much more information out there if you go and look. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but there's just, yeah, especially in today's day and age, we're privileged to have all the information we need at our fingertips if you want to choose. And so that I started experimenting with dieting, and this was like 13 years ago. I came across ketosis before it, blew up, and I fell in love with the focus and the clarity of
Mm,
cutting out sugar because this was during my extreme obsession with peak performance and optimization.
yep.
And so all I drink was water and unsweetened tea. And I had a colleague at the nuclear power plant that we drink unsweetened tea together, and he came up with this brilliant idea to cool our yerba mate we drank, bought a soda stream, carbonated it, and made the first unsweetened sparkling tea and brought it into work. I took a sip and was in love. I say love at first sip. And I was like, this is the thing that's going to get me out of corporate America and go all in beverage. If I was investing in real estate at the time, getting my MBA and like looking for something I was passionate about to leave the corporate world. And so 11, 12 years ago now, we quit the power plant job and launched Sound Beverages and Sound as an adjective, sound body, sound mind, sound ingredients, sound mission. I'm really trying to bring transparency and education into the consumer packaged goods space because they're lacking big time. And that was right around the time that the biohacking movement emerged with Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield and Luke Story, Jim Quick, all these people. And so again, my extreme mind that, was driven by this belief that I needed to perform and do so much for my family and all the things. So anything I could do to continue keep doing, I would obsess and take that curiosity and engineering mind and just go down rabbit holes.
Hmm.
And I went down every rabbit hole of biohacking to the point where I had moved to New York City to launch a beverage company. And I was showing off that I was hacking my way down to 5 hours of sleep, running 10 miles every other day, listening to 3 audiobooks minimum a week, raising money from 170 people, thinking I'm winning this game of life. Also like one meal a day, bulletproof coffees, every week, 48-hour fasting. Like I did this for 5 years,
Wow.
like to the extreme. And then my body so beautifully broke down and my knee gave out. And that was what I say is the beginning of my inward journey. And I was
Mm,
so addicted to the endorphin release of sweating from running 10 miles every day, which I do in 70 minutes, 7 minute paced miles,
that's
central, but
impressive.
like wild. Um, and I came across Bikram yoga because I needed to sweat. And that was the first time my mind was forced to shut up. fuck up. And really the beginning. And that's when I came across Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural, which the
Great
engineer
book.
and me geeked out on. And it was the first time in literature I had ever seen anything written about HRV relating to stress in the beginning of that book. And Aura Ring had just come out. I had it for about 6 months. I was obsessed with readiness score, sleep score. HRV was there, but nobody was talking about it. I had never even heard of it. But when I saw that Dr. Joe Dispenza said that it relates to stress, I was like, wait, what? Because I knew from all of my research in the biohacking world, because I was obsessed with longevity, that science has very much proven that the root cause of all aging, disease, and eventually death is inflammation on a cellular level. Period. End of story. If you peel the onion back enough, the root cause of everything, unless you die in an accident, is cellular inflammation. And science has also proven that the leading cause, the number one cause of cellular inflammation is chronic stress.
Hmm.
And so when my mind saw HRVs related to stress, and I had already conceptually, analytically known that equation, the engineering, he's like, why do I care about any other biomarker? If I'm really obsessed with longevity, this is the only thing that I should be looking into. And so the past 6 years of my life has been that deep obsession of learning and understanding this biomarker. And that's really where the journey started. And and it's a beautiful segue to the art framework because now I walk through in my each I have 5 pathways for HIV growth because then the next question everybody always asks is, okay, how do you improve your HIV? How do you take yours from 30 to above 100? And that's all interwoven into my story. So I want to first just talk about the art of the heart offering. And art stands for awareness, regulation, transformation. And it's this 3 act arc that is not a ladder that we like climb once and we're at the top and we did it and we're regulated. People are like, oh my God, you're so regulated. I'm like, no, that's why I don't say nervous system regulation. I say nervous system sovereignty because it's actually not about being regulated all the time. That's not what we came here to do as humans. And in fact, if you're regulated all the time, your HRV isn't going to go up because you're not challenging it, you're not training it, right? So it's about sovereignty, it's about agency that you have the ability when you choose to regulate, to bring yourself back into a calm state, to not react automatically to what you're perceiving based on a prior program or story or conditioning, right? And so it's not a ladder we climb once, but rather a daily act of devotion towards nervous system sovereignty. So you're in a constant spiral of awareness to what's happening, regulation to wanting to bring agency on how you respond, how your nervous system responds, and then consistently bringing awareness and regulation creates transformation over time. And what I have found for myself is that HRV is such an incredible tool to bring awareness to what is happening internally because it's the language of your body. So for those like myself that were very guilty of being so much in the mind and suppressing emotions and not really feeling in the body, it was a biomarker that helped guide me to listen more, right? And when I first discovered it with Joe, I literally the first 3 months I spent doing what I did with everything, trying to hack the crap out of it. And my baseline when I started was 32, and it did not budge at all. And so then I was like, okay, let's see what else I can do. And that's when these 5 pathways for HIV growth started. And pathway number one is sleep as the foundation. And this is no surprise. I'm sure you've talked about this on podcasts. Everybody knows the importance of sleep. The only thing evolution hasn't gotten rid of in any species, and evolution does not make mistakes because its sole responsibility is survival. Um, and I was showing off that I was hacking my way to 5 hours of sleep, right? And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I should start prioritizing this thing because if HRV is reflecting your nervous system's ability to go from sympathetic to parasympathetic, and when you're sleeping, you're in your deepest parasympathetic state of delta, when your brain is oscillating between zero point 0.5 and 4 hertz, and you're getting a total reset of the nervous system. And if you are not giving your nervous system that deepest delta state, then it is going to be very challenging for that baseline to go up, right? And that has everything to do with circadian rhythm and your internal clock. And I don't think I need to go into all the details of the importance of sleep and ways to support sleep, like what you're doing now, wearing these blue light blocking glasses and really honoring the natural sunlight that as humans, we spent 99% of our evolution triggering that internal clock. And now we have more blue light than we can imagine everywhere. So sleep as the foundation. And the second I started doing that, I began to over time see that baseline start to go up, right? So sleep
Yep.
as pathway number one. Pathway number two is hormetic stress as the catalyst. Now,
I'm
hormetic
curious,
stress or go
real
ahead.
quick, I'm curious, what was one of the first things you did or most helpful things to start improving your sleep? What'd you
Yeah,
focus
getting
on?
out
Or
of
because there's so many.
my mental belief that
Yeah.
I could sleep when I die, that sleep
Yeah.
is unproductive, and that it's a waste of time, and I could be
Mm,
doing like actually being like, no, I'm gonna give what my body wants of 7, 8 hours of sleep, rather than thinking I could do NSDRs and all these things during the day and like hack and take away because I was not getting REM sleep for those 5 years. Because REM is your last cycles, right? It starts usually the third or fourth cycle. And I literally, I see my aura ring, I'd get, my 90 minutes of deep sleep. But if I'm only sleeping 5 hours, I'd maybe get 10 to 30 minutes. I don't think I broke 30 minutes of REM sleep for a long time.
wow.
And so the second I started getting that REM sleep, I started seeing that baseline go up.
Got it. So changing the belief and educating yourself on the importance of doing it, then you're like, oh, I should actually value this and be better at this.
I should honor and revere this. I was wearing the
Yeah.
blue light blocking glasses. I was doing like all those things. I just was like, I would rather be up doing things
Yeah.
than sleeping. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Like sleep and breath are the two most powerful things you can do, and they're totally free. And they're more
Uh-huh.
powerful than any stem cells or anything in the world that your
And let's not
pills
even
and
talk
crutch.
about the thing behind me that's the most powerful, that's free as well, nature
Nature, yep.
and and what that can do. But yeah, great question. Okay, so hormetic stress or hormesis, for those unfamiliar, your listeners, that is the philosophy of essentially intentionally eliciting a mild stress on the body and then consciously dropping it back into a parasympathetic state. So training the nervous system. And the best analogy I have for this that like my mind resonated with was weightlifting training, right? If you're going to the gym and you're training your bicep, you're actually lifting more weight than your bicep can handle, tearing the fibers in your muscle, right? To extend its capacity. And then the next day, you don't go lift your bicep. You
Mm,
give it a day to recover and to heal so that the following day you can go and lift more weight, right? Same philosophy for our muscle of the nervous system, right? Intentionally putting it in a perceived stressful state, and then consciously, with our awareness, bringing it back out. Now, good news, most of us are don't have an issue putting ourselves in a stressful state. That's the easy part. What I was the most guilty of was dropping it out. Now, I would not do that. I'd wake up from my deepest parasympathetic state of delta, and then I would stay in a mind-made stressful state for 8, 10, 12 hours straight, doing, thinking I'm doing, and I wouldn't drop back in until I go to sleep.
mm,
Now, this is where NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, right? Which all that is dropping your body into a theta parasympathetic state, a power nap, right? To train it throughout the day to fluctuate. And I want to just because I feel like your listeners would appreciate this. This also has everything to do with what science proved that chronic stress is the lead cause of cellular inflammation, which is the root cause of all aging, disease, and death. And when I understood why that's the case and how science proved that, I was like, oh, I really need to prioritize that because what is happening internally when our body goes into a high beta sympathetic state, like what's happening viscerally and physiologically to all our organs is our amygdala is firing off that, oh my God, danger, stress, right? And it's sending a plethora of signals to our organs, to our eyes, to our mouth, all these things to have it unconsciously, subconsciously protect our survival. And this We evolved creating this system, this sympathetic fight or flight system, because most of our evolution, we were living in the jungle and we had real life or death threats. And so our brilliant bodies developed a way to actually survive. And so the most important thing to understand why the lead cause of all cellular inflammation is chronic stress is because what happens when you go into this sympathetic high beta state is all of your vital oxygenated blood that is normally going to your visceral organs, meaning all the organs in the center of your chest, your liver, your lungs, your digestion, your reproduction, that are maintaining homeostasis in the body and all of your energy and all of your pairs. All of that vital oxygenated blood gets diverted to your extremities so that your body can run, fight, or freeze, right? Which is so brilliant if you're running from weather or a tiger or whatever the actual thing is for your real life or death threat. Absolutely brilliant. And when we used to do that, that would last for an hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours on the occasion, but it would not be 8, 10, 12 hours every single day,
Hmm.
right? And then we drop back into a parasympathetic state so that all that vital oxygen could go back to the visceral organs so that the body can continue maintaining its homeostasis and battling all the inflammation that's happening internally and supporting regeneration. Fast forward to today, we wake up from that deepest parasympathetic state of delta. We look at our phone, we read an email, we get in an argument with a spouse, and we usually stay in a mind-made perpetual beta state, sending all of that vital oxygenated blood to our extremities, even though we don't actually need to, but our body does not know the difference because the mind does not know the difference between a tiger and an email. It just knows danger, right? Because it's being fed by the mind that, oh my God, this is bad. My relationship to this thing happening to me is bad. And we stay for 8, 10, 12 hours consistently every day, that vital oxygen going to the extremities, which over time leads to cellular inflammation, right? And so to really understand that changed my priorities for longevity and where I was focusing my attention. And I wanted to share that during the hormetic stress pathway because I said it was chronic stress that was the number one cause of cellular inflammation, not stress. Stress is actually your best friend. It's your ally when you learn to partner with it because it is the doorway to what your body is asking for recognition, what it wants to be felt. But when you don't listen and you stay up in here, that leads to the chronic stress, which leads to the cellular inflammation.
Mm, that's a great distinction. Yep.
Yeah. And so I stayed in running the beverage company, and intentionally kept myself in arguably one of the most stressful businesses you can be in, and would throughout the day, multiple times a day, use all of my incredible biohacking technologies, binaural beats, hyperbarics, red light, contrast, anything you name it, breath work in between like a minute call or something to drop into a parasympathetic state to then go back into a heightened stressful state which allowed me to take my baseline above 150 because I was training to the extreme doing hormetic stress, right? But consciously throughout the day, dropping into parasympathetic states.
Yeah. So that was a useful tool for you to be able to run the beverage company.
Oh yeah, it's how I survived those next five
Yep.
years, thinking that I was still at my peak, optimized,
Yep.
and then I got my next humble awakening, and that leads to pathway number three, which is reframing the shift.
Mm,
And so it was about 2 years ago, and on the outside, Sound, the beverage was doing so incredible. Number two beverage in Whole Foods on the East Coast, number one beverage in Thrive, over 2,000 retailers, like really expanding exponentially. And with that, in the beverage space, you need a lot of financial capital to keep up with that demand and the pay to play that they say is retail. And I was struggling raising a big enough check to keep up with that demand and getting myself in a lot of debt. And really internally, even though my baseline was great because I was training it and continuing to down regulate, but just because I was doing that doesn't mean I wasn't stressed inside big time. And I was dependent on these technologies to keep me at an even pace. And my birthday was approaching 2 years ago. And in front of all of my community and friends, I declared I wanted to step into less doing, more being. A common statement I've heard echoed amongst entrepreneurs approaching burnout, right? It's like, oh my God, I've been doing this for a decade essentially, and I just want to, I'm holding a lot. And I got gifted in front of all of my friends. They pulled together money and gifted me a Super 73 electronic bike, this Burning Man bike that I wanted. And I take said bike for its first spin in my backyard, the Venice Beach boardwalk. And the sun is setting, and I'm like, oh, okay, everything's going to work out. It always works out. The money's going to come in when it needs to come in. Just trust it's all going to be okay. And I get in the silliest accident that anteriorly dislocates my right shoulder, tears my labrum, and fractures 30% of my shoulder socket off.
Oof.
I had to rush to the ER. They had to dislocate to relocate it. Excruciating pain. Wake up the next morning, furious, not only from the pain, but my mind is like, how can I raise money without a right shoulder? How is this happening now? All the stories are going on, swirling. And to no surprise, my HRV, which the baseline was about 150 at the time, was 30, right? So my body's screaming that it is very dissonant with whatever is happening right now in the story that's being told. And thank God I had a call with my coach that day. And I tell him the story, and he breaks out laughing. And I go, the fuck is so funny? And he goes, let's break down the body spiritually. The arms represent the doing, the body, the torso, represents the being, the shoulder connects the doing to the being. What did you ask for on your birthday? Less doing, more being. What did you get? Exactly what you asked for from the gift in front of everybody that you asked for it. How can you not laugh at the cosmic joke of the universe? And the second he said that, I broke out laughing and I was like, oh man, my body is screaming at me. What is it asking? I need to listen. And it was asking to let go of my obsession of making this beverage work and having it control my life, and step into this new chapter of nervous system sovereignty because I had just launched that HRV guy. I was really talking, I started coaching people, and my body was asking to step into the next chapter and let go of my mind's belief and story. And I shit you not, 24 hours later, same pain, same dislocated shoulder, same everything physically, but my mind in relationship to the story changed. My HRV tripled to 97 just from a change in the injury happening for me and accepting and listening to it,
Mm.
right? And so that is the power of reframing the shift. Because again, if HRV is measuring how we perceive this world, our story and how we're relating to it is the number one thing that goes into how we perceive our reality, right?
Absolutely, 100%. That's
Yeah.
totally in my lane. Yep.
That's I know the beautiful work you do. So, okay, so we have sleep, we have hormetic stress, we have reframing. Pathway number four
I,
is
I, I
intentionality.
I
Go
do
ahead.
want to add, though, I say acknowledge you for not everybody notices the signals from the universe or is open to receive it. So I acknowledge you for actually seeing it and receiving it. And also great you had a coach that was reflecting that as well to you. But great for you to like learn the lesson, right? A lot of times people don't always register it and they keep repeating the same lesson in different cycles and timelines.
I appreciate that, and I'm not going to take that credit because I had been getting signs for about 5 years, and I had to get slapped silly by my shoulder, and then the next part of the story that you're going to hear. So thank you for saying that. And I now my one of my hopes in sharing these stories is for people to listen while it's whispering, before it yells, because yeah, that was a pretty big. You don't get a much bigger sign than that in what I'm about to tell you. That so it took a lot for me to listen. So thank you for saying that, but also I was not listening.
That's
Um,
true too.
uh, so intentionality, the alignment. So back to my story. I was like, okay, I hear you. Now I'm listening that you've totally dislocated and my shoulder and fractured 30% of the socket off. I'm gonna let go of this, but I'm not just gonna like let it crumble. I have 170 of my family and friends that have invested in it. Let's see how we can make it work. And I step away. And so that ended up materializing as a holding company that acquires distressed beverages, came and they put together an APA, an asset purchase agreement. And so they purchased our brand and asset. They started a new company. I convinced them to take our cap table. So all of our investors own some of the new company, which outside of the beverage still going was the most important thing to me. And they only took the debt to our suppliers. The rest of the debt fell on the company's shoulder, which we dissolved, and then literally fell on my shoulder as I was the personal guarantor and had a lot of my own debt. So I had to file for personal bankruptcy. So the whispering or the yelling that happened to my beautiful mind for not listening was physical death, financial death, ego identity to founder, entrepreneur, success, exit, my dream, the 7 billion that I had written that was I was going to get all of that story gone to have nothing, right? And so I decided to travel to Bali, where I'm taking this call now because I've been called there for a while. And every morning I got up and I contemplated that beautiful, beautiful statement that I manifested for myself, less doing, more being. And every morning, my mind would just incessantly chatter that we love to. Like, what are we going to do if we're not doing? What would do? What like we're so good at doing? Why are we just going to be? And it would just be this constant battle until one morning I had this epiphany that that statement, less doing and more being, is mind-made and dualistic in nature, and it implies that doing and being are mutually exclusive. When the reality is we're always being, even though we're unaware of it 99% of the time, and we're always doing, even if we're sitting or breathing or sleeping. So it's not about doing less and being more. It's actually about the intention in your doing, the why in your doing, the purpose of your doing, right? And it reminded me of my favorite quote from the Bhagavad Gita, which states, you have a right to your actions, but never your actions' fruit. Act solely for the action's sake and don't be attached to inaction.
Hmm.
We all came here to do, to create, to be artists. We do not have a right to the outcome of what we do, and that's what eventually leads to suffering and expectation. Simply act and do for your purpose, for your why, for the action's sake, and don't be attached to doing nothing, right? And I believe, and I have seen in myself and my clients, that HRV is a measure of how aligned you are with your intention, with your purpose, right?
Hmm.
And it is a compass pointing you towards that. And a compass needs 3 points to triangulate. In an HRV, it works. Point number one is what you're perceiving. Point number two is how you're responding to what you're perceiving. And point number three is your intention, your purpose, comparing those two. And if you are not auditing and bringing awareness to your intention, to your purpose, or what I was very guilty of is if you're still running on an old purpose and old intention that your current version of you is not more evolved, but just in a different state of resonance with, right? Then your HRV is very much gonna reflect that dissonance in your actions versus what your body actually wants. And so to audit and reflect and align on your purpose, which isn't anything new, and you know, some of the most brilliant people, and I know you talk and share, and Tony Robbins, everybody about this. But from a HRV perspective, I have found for myself and my clients very much aligned in seeing that baseline go up. So when I started acting in alignment with what my current version wanted, what my current body wanted, I started seeing that baseline improve.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the concept of it being a compass, and it's the best feedback mechanism for you
Mhm.
living in alignment with your purpose and your intention.
And again, in each one of these pathways, it's weaving that art framework, that awareness, regulation, transformation, using HRV as the feedback. So I am one that needed objective data and was so in my mind engineer analytical. And so if you use this biomarker as a feedback to feel more, to align with your purpose more, to tap into that innate wisdom of the body, it has been transformative for me, and that's what I guide people and clients, and that's what my art framework and the course is about. So that's pathway number four. So we have sleep, we have hormetic stress, we have reframing, we have intentionality. And the fifth pathway, to no surprise, is community, the amplifier. And I mean, there's so much science and research around this, including the 80 plus year Harvard case study on what led to the longest, healthiest, happiest life for over 72 youth in Boston, age 18, followed them for 80 years. And records of medical information and interviews with spouses and colleagues and you name it, and three generations of scientists all trying to find out what led to a longer, healthier, happier life. And the number one thing they came back with was relationships, and not quantity, but quality. And we see this in every blue zone in the world. One of the pillars is community, and that has everything to do with co-regulation because our nervous systems synchronize to the nervous systems around us. And all the nervous system wants, its sole like thing is to feel safe, to be safe for your survival, right? And so when you can be open, when you can be vulnerable, when you can have a deep, conscious connection with someone and be so seen, your nervous system's like, ah, and it co-regulates to that. And so community is the amplifier. And so those are my five pathways for HRV growth. Very different than what you see out there and, frameworks around health. But for my story, as I shared it, it's what saw that HRV grow. And the last thing that I'll just add, especially for a peak performer human podcast that I don't share often, my baseline now fluctuates between 90 and 110, so less than it was for those 5 years of running the beverage company. And people are like, oh my God, are you worried? And like, I'm not, because I am not training as intensely as I was running the beverage company, and my body feels so much better and more at peace with that. And so I don't think 150 is the best and where it needs to be. Right now, where I'm at, I am very resonant with my new lifestyle and maintaining this level of stress that I put myself through and the baseline showing there. Just to share that it's so different than any other biomarker. And people are shocked. They're like, you're at 150, you don't want to try getting back there. You're that HRV guy. And no, it's really, you ask the question, what is a peak performer? It's about listening to what your body wants. And I was at 150 and my body very much slapped me silly. So I've been very healthy on a physical front the last 2 years since recovering from that. That I'm very happy with where I'm at right now.
Yeah. What do you do for training these days?
I my training is all calisthenic, so push-ups, pull-ups, dips. I haven't touched a weight in a while. And then my other favorite thing is blood flow restriction. I think one of the most underrated forms of training. Actually, was just talking to my dear friend, Dr. Mark Hyman about that, and I got him to get my a brand that I love, Katsu bands. Are you familiar with blood flow restriction?
I've never heard of it.
Oh man, you're gonna love this, and your audience is gonna love this. Have you familiar with nitric oxide?
Yep.
Okay. So many different ways our body produces nitric oxide, but one of the biggest ways, and it's actually Dr. Mark Hyman has the best podcast on this from the guy who I think discovered nitric oxide. It is the reason why movement is the best medicine for the body, because one way our body produces nitric oxide is the friction of blood running through our veins and arteries on that wall creates nitric oxide, right? And obviously, if you're moving, your blood is circulating more, which means more nitric oxide is present in your blood. And nitric oxide is anti-inflammatory. And remember, the root cause of all aging, disease, and death is inflammation. So the more nitric oxide in your body, the less inflammation. And so blood flow restriction is the phenomena of literally cutting off circulation, either here in your arms or right up top at the hips, and then either doing a light exercise or katsu bands actually go hold the pressure for 30 seconds, decrease, go hold the pressure 30 seconds, decrease. And what is this doing? A nitric oxide dump, because your blood, your heart wants to pump the blood out there, but it's restricted. It can't. The second you release the pressure, and that's more friction happening. And as for someone who lives out of his suitcase and travels, literally, I have what I call a nitric oxide dump, a 10-minute workout with these bands. I do every other day. And then the other days I do push-ups, pull-ups, dips. And that is my workout outside of sometimes yoga and movement. And I do a breathwork, Tibetan movement exercise and a few other things. But yeah, that is
Wow.
my go-to.
And then cardio, not as much in the general sense where running or biking and getting your heart rate elevated.
Yeah, I do not run anymore. My body does not want running. I
Yeah,
went too extreme in that. But when I do my calisthenics, it is a hit. In 15 minutes, I do 120
yeah,
push-ups. I do about 45 dips. There's no breaks. So I am profusely sweating and my heart is so high for those 15 minutes. And
yep,
then I go and I drop in a parasympathetic state right after, right? So that is my getting that heart rate to that
yeah,
higher rate. But it's again also why my HRV isn't back up to the 150 that it was because I maybe don't train it as hard as I used to.
right, yep. And what's the importance when I know a lot of people wake up and they work right away and they don't necessarily get distracted by the phone, but some people, I know some of my clients actually even, right? Even though I, I promote meditation, breath work, moving your body a little bit in the morning, even for at least 10, even for 10 minutes at the minimum, right? Because you'll get a big shift out of that even. But some people prefer just jumping straight into work for like 3 hours. What what do you think about that? And is there downside to that? Because you're going straight from the delta brain waves from sleep into what is it, beta, when you're just kind of in like a work state? Is there,
Yeah, or alpha. Some alpha is that like flow state. So if you're in like a good work state, which means like no monkey mind but focused on one thing, you could be in alpha, you could be in beta, depending if they're actually not stressed or over an email, maybe they're in alpha. Um, So I'm always very cautious of saying like this is the way
yeah,
because again, what works for me may be dissonant for you. Now that being said, what I've seen in myself and every one of my clients is the importance of taking at least a moment in the day to go in and listen and align with your purpose or just reflect, right? And for myself, if I don't do that in the morning, I get lost in the
yeah,
story of the day, and it's very challenging. And to your beautiful point, it is the most easeful way after that deepest delta state to tap into that theta state before you get into the whole entire story of the day. So it's set up to be the best time. Now, some people like doing that in the afternoon, some people like doing that at night, and if that resonates more, great. But to me, when people are like, what's the one thing you could do for HRV improvement? And I say a morning practice because of that, but a practice, a time to just go and sit and close the eyes or even dance or run if that's like
yeah,
something that just gets what your body resonates with outside of its normal story.
yep. I love that. I love how you said don't get caught up in the story of the day. It's so easy for that to happen. Sometimes now I'm so used to it, but sometimes I experiment. I'm like, oh, maybe what if I don't meditate today? It's like, it's kind of impossible for me not to do it now because I just get so much. I can't really. Again, I could function, but I can't. I actually can't function at the high level I want to if I don't do meditation or breath work because I'm not able to access those states from doing it. So it's really, to me, it's a super power to do that to start the day and throughout the day too, right? It's like people in the Marines or the Army or the military, they get trained. Only certain people can touch these multi-million-dollar aircraft. And our body, if you had to put a price tag on it, is worth over $1 billion, even though it's worth way more than that, obviously. But just to think about it in a numbers way, it's like, damn, that is a lot of money. If I lost my arm, I'd be like, I'd pay $1 billion for my arm if I had $1 billion. But we don't learn how to regulate or to, what was the word you said instead of regulate? To
Sovereignty, to bring
sovereignty.
sovereignty,
Yeah,
agency. Yeah.
yeah, to have the agency and sovereignty of this insane aircraft that we've been blessed with for our time on the earth.
And I resonate so deeply with what you said. Like if I don't do my morning practice, it's not that I don't function, but what I find is I have less sovereignty. I have less agency and I end up falling back into older patterns
Yep.
because the mind takes over. And the mind, I have humbly learned that it's not going to go away. The ego that people are like, oh, surprise, it's not going to go away. But that's because it's your best friend and ally. So the magic isn't about going away because my obsession and extremism is what birthed my beverage. It's what's birthing this new offering, all the things. It's about utilizing it for good and then laughing at it the other, for me now, 99% of the time, and not letting it control the show,
Mm,
right? And I find it easiest for me to laugh at it and not let it control the show when I take the time to sit and remind it why I'm here, remind it of my purpose and align with it, right? That intentionality. And if I don't do that, then that story ends up outweighing what the current version wants. So I deeply resonate with what you shared on that.
totally, yeah. What would you suggest to somebody who wants to start their day with a morning routine who hasn't done one before?
Yeah, I think to just tune into a modality, a tool that resonates with their body. Maybe it's a minute of box breathing. Maybe it's just simply journaling, journaling on your purpose. Maybe it's stating your purpose. Maybe it's stating a mantra. Maybe it's a walk without your phone. Like there's so many different modalities and tools that you can, that a morning practice is. A morning practice isn't just like meditating, right? It could not even involve meditating. And with my clients, I tell them, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I have experimented with every biohack. I've learned from all these different spiritual masters. I have so many different potentials to see what resonates with your body, but we're going to listen to your HRV and what you're saying you enjoy, because the most important thing that anyone who is doing a morning practice needs to ensure, which I was very guilty of, is not doing it to check the box. Because if you're doing it to check the box, you're missing the entire point of the morning practice. And I was the most guilty. I used to do it to check the box.
That's funny. That's the same thing with trying to make your HRV better.
Yeah. Yeah. hmm
Yep.
hmm
Amazing. So people, they could go to your website. I was on your website earlier. What they should do, they should definitely, for everybody listening, go check out there's a HRV archetype quiz. So they can go take that to learn more about their HRV archetype. And you also have, did your course come out yet or it's almost out?
No, course is out. And thank you for mentioning that HRV archetype. It's only, I think, 8 questions. And then you get actually an 18-page custom tailored HRV guide that goes into a little more detail than what we talked about on here based on your archetype of different tools. There's like 12 different breathwork practices that maybe
Wow.
resonate, different things in there. That's all free that you get with taking that quiz. So definitely go do that. And then the course launched last week. And there's information on that on the website and in the free guide. There's a couple different tiers, and that course goes much deeper into then what the guide goes and has my favorite tool, the HRV reset, which is a somatic awareness activation that I do daily in my practice, that every one of my clients do, that really supported me um, maneuvering as gracefully as I could through the unraveling, the bankruptcy of all the things, and to really get the medicine out of that that I needed. So it's been instrumental.
That's amazing. That's incredible. Where should people go to learn more, to find out more, to connect with you? I know you have a lot of different homes on the internet. Where should they go? To your website, to your Instagram?
That HRV guy, THAT guy, Instagram, I put out the most content, and website has everything that you just mentioned. But there's also YouTube, all the things. But yeah, just that HRV guy, wherever they're at. Very simple, very rememberable name. My best friend came up with it. Now I walk around, people are like, oh my God, you're that HRV guy.
Yeah.
Um, quite hilarious. Yeah,
It
yeah,
is a great name. Great branding and marketing. I like that.
yeah,
What,
yeah.
as we close the episode down, what are your departing words for the audience? What's your final message?
Yeah, I would say I'll share uh my two of my greatest allies on my HRV journey of nervous system sovereignty has been curiosity, and by that I mean, in the art framework, bringing that awareness and then that regulation, bringing curiosity to why am I responding like this? Why do I feel this way? Like just questioning how I am subconsciously responding, and going a couple questions internally.
Mm-hmm.
And then alongside curiosity, levity, laughter, lightness, because I truly believe it is a beautiful, I call it an educational simulation that we live in, that very much is here to teach us and in funny ways, as I shared my shoulder story. So if we could bring in some lightness, every enlightened master I've ever seen in Buddha, they're smiling all the time, and laughing. It really helps just bring some lightheartedness into the deep, beautiful journey of of going home to yourself, which I think we're all on.
Beautiful. Thank you, Salim, so much for being on the show.
Oh man, truly such a pleasure. Thank you for your platform, for the work you do, and for asking me to come join.